Guys, thank you so much for coming today. Everybody who's on the call already, obviously, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend some time with us and having a little conversation today with John Atkinson and Blake Guither. Full disclosure, everyone, if you don't already know, I've worked with these guys a lot over the years. I consider both of them not only professional friends, but friends. Been a pleasure to know both of these gentlemen in my life and still have them around in it. So with that, guys, I want to kick off a little bit of introduction in case people don't know who you are. So John, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got into the industry and where you're and how you got to where you are today.
Well, I started off in architecture about 25 years ago, 24 years ago. But was given the opportunity to switch over to engineering probably about 11 years ago and loved it. Everything jived. I loved the people. So it was a lot of fun. I was able to provide some decent insight, I guess, into how Revit worked and how to build some families and get things rolling. So from there, I went to CTC after a few years in the industry, and then did some training, some content development, and all that other jazz. And now I'm back out into the marketplace as the national engineering BIM manager for DLR Group.
Phenomenal. Thank you, John. Blake, how about a little bit about you and your story? How did you, where'd you start and how'd you get to where you are today?
Let's see, I was born in Colorado. No, not that far. I've been out of school now about 12 to 13 years. I'm a licensed mechanical engineer. I used to do a lot of energy modeling, still do a little bit. So I've got an energy modeling background. And then I've been doing Revit content development now for the last 6 to 7 years. So I like playing disc golf. I got a wife and 3 kids at home, so they stay busy, and maybe their faces may pop up on our screen. We just don't know, these days. And then also I am avid, wants to do more in my home to finish this basement that's behind me. So you guys can see some framed up walls, and that's currently in progress. I'm through my electrical rough end, and I've got a plumbing permanent inspection coming up. So small steps.
Oh, phenomenal, Blake. Thank you so much, guys, for being here today. Obviously, guys, I did not mention this when we first started, but I see more people are coming in. So, guys, this is an open session, so it's a Q&A session, everyone. So if you have questions of myself or these 2 gentlemen that are joining me on this call, feel free to type them into the chat or the question and answer. I've got them both open here, guys, and I'll be monitoring both throughout the presentation. I do see that we've had some questions come in right away. One of the questions is, I'm in the presence of greatness, which really isn't a question, but thank you so much for the comment.
Thank you.
I was really, guys, kicking around questions last night, albeit like Blake Guither hours, were far too late into the evening to be kicking around questions, but I was still doing it anyways. And I came up with, I thought, a good one to start off with. That's a more generalized question. And I'm curious to hear both of your opinions on this. In your opinion, based upon your experience, what is the role of a Revit model in a project? And Blake, I'll go to you first on this one.
What is the role of the Revit model? So just a quick little sidebar here. So John, did you get any prep on any of these questions?
No.
Okay,
Nope.
Sweet. All right, so this is really, yeah, we get to come up with this as we go, which is fun. Okay, so the purpose of the Revit model, I mean, at the end of the day, we have to make money as companies, and a lot of our companies make money by producing permit and construction documents. So at the end of the day, for most companies currently, it is to get a job permitted with some buildable level of plans ready for the contractor to use. I'd like to see the Revit model live actually much longer beyond that, but currently, I think that's its most cost-effective moment in time right now.
Okay. Oh, phenomenal, John. What's your opinion on it?
On
What's
part?
What's the role of a Revit model in a project?
Well, I think Blake had it right. I mean, it should live beyond just the construction documents and the design effort. I see it rolling into from start to finish, going from design and all the way through the building life cycle, through facilities management and everything. So I feel it's really important to try and get all that information transported properly. Whether you're using any of the FM options or software or Kobe, whatever it is you're doing. I think it's the role of the Revit model is going to be pretty big moving forward if people aren't leveraging that information already.
Yeah, absolutely. We do see a few people obviously out there doing that right now. And I think it's safe to say that we're shifting from a view of Revit that it is to produce construction documents. It is actually a tool to do quite a bit more than simply just produce construction documents. So yeah, I just thought that would be an interesting question, guys, to kind of kick that idea around.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the same thing, producing construction documents, but with the Revit model, we're actually doing quite a bit more up to that point, spatial coordination, producing, almost elements in a place that that creates virtual models for people to visualize and things like that. So coordination, I mean, we're doing so much more than we were 20 years ago, but yeah, unfortunately, still at the end of the day, we got to have some drawings ready for permitting. So
yeah, until we see the governing bodies start to look at other items to do reviews and make decisions on, we're still going to be stuck with those, right?
yeah.
But no, guys, that answers my question at least, and we've got quite a few more questions that have come into the Q&A area in the chat. So I'm just going to go ahead and start here. We've got some questions about, let's see, where was our first question? I want to make sure I get to these in order. Holy cow, lots of questions, guys. Did I drop off? Am I frozen?
Oh, no. Oh,
okay.
I was looking for the phasing question that Curtis had.
Yes. How do we deal with phased elements in MEP and architecture to ensure consistency between disciplines? And I'm going to add a caveat here, short of picking up your BIM stick and going over to the architect's office.
Yeah. You want to go first, John?
Sure. Yeah, we use phase mapping to link directly to the architectural phases. But one thing probably Don understands is, Blake, you do too, we never have a demo phase. We'll just skip right over that if architecture has a demo phase.
Sure.
Yeah. It's for me, I've maybe every 1 in 20 architects I work with has gone through and renamed their phase filters from out of the box. And so every now and then I get these models where my views aren't looking correct and the phases aren't lining up related to the filters, because by default, in most cases, the architectural links phase filters are based upon the host view settings. So that's something to watch out for that I've come across. But I mean, I see phasing as a very powerful feature in Revit, and leveraging some workflows, where you can manage tags and family content, without, needing, without doing something twice. Ideally, you're modeling something once and moving it into other phases as it progresses forward in the design. And I don't know, I've seen a lot of ways too where people are working on remodels and they're not leveraging all of the existing modeled elements For example, I just want to give one workflow here. So like if a bathroom was going to get remodeled and all the piping and the plumbing fixtures it's in the same spot, but they're going to get replaced, right? So maybe you've spent time going through the model and modeling the as-built. If I have time in the budget, that's what I'm doing. But for me, I just want to throw this out there. It's like, I'm not redrawing the new bathroom with all new piping. You know, what I usually do is I'll drag select those existing elements. I will move them to the new phase of construction because they're all connected at that point. And then I'll copy them and paste them back into the existing phase and demolish them, which then they come disconnected at that point. So it's just a way to utilize what's there for existing, even though it's not the new pipe that's going to be there, but you know, you could still use it. It's all connected. So different things like that, I don't see people leveraging enough of. But.
No, fair point. And for me, guys, it's in terms of phasing and architects and MEP sharing that. To me, it all boils down to communication. It's one thing to have the phases in there. It's something completely different to not tell people to anticipate that the phases are there or that you have phases established from an architectural perspective. I think that that's part of the handover, if you will. Hey, here's this link we're giving you to put in your model and start your basis of design from. Oh, and by the way, we have all of these things set up as visibility controls for whatever reason. I like to see that as part of the project handover communique. Just add some clarity.
So Don, can I tack on a question to the original question for us to address? I think it's in due time where we're going to get to some projects now where we'll have an available Revit model, you know, that was done prior for the initial build out, you know, and maybe they're remodeling a certain area. What is your guys' thoughts on how to manage that workflow in the remodel now? You know, so maybe you already have sheets, views, things set up in that area with tags. You know, does it make sense to keep those old sheets and annotated views around, or you know, do you kind of let them go and just keep the current set of annotated views for those areas?
Current set.
Boy,
because you've already archived
question.
the other model, right? You've already archived that previous model. So if you're moving forward on the project, you may as well leverage the sheets and views that you already have and just move forward from there, right?
Yeah, and that's, you know, my understanding of Revit phasing, guys, is that it's you know, overall project phasing, kind of like what we're discussing right now, where, you know, Revit's going to want you, in essence, it's created this way to go back in time, grab that old model that you did if you're going to be developing on that site, take everything that was pre-existing or that was done at that old model, excuse me, and move that over to the existing phase, and then put, you know, whatever the new build out is on new construction. So Revit's already kind of set up to be leveraged that way. I guess the bigger question to me, Blake, is we're going to start seeing that, and I think that's awesome. But how often are you actually going to have access to that? Like how often is it that, you know, say your team did a build, and then, you know, 10 years later you get the same contract to the same build? You know, that's not that common right now.
Yeah, not a common case for sure. For phasing, then at that point, do you see phasing almost needing to correspond to dates in a timeline as opposed to existing and new construction, or do you guys kind of see it staying as existing and new construction at that point in time, you know?
I think at that point in time, and right now, Blake, it stays existing and new, and it's phased from that perspective. I do envision, as people get better at this and we're ahead of the game rather than being so responsive, right? We're being a little bit more proactive with the modeling, that it can definitely be tied in with some sort of schedule. As long as construction schedules stop moving around and adjusting, we should be just fine. But I have never seen one that didn't adjust halfway through. So, you know, it is what it is. How about you, John?
Yeah, that's the use of phasing. I guess moving forward from an existing project, I would just tack on new phases and just go. You know, change your view templates and keep going. Shouldn't be an issue. I guess I've never had a problem. I know, like one of Derek's questions, kind of follow up on the phasing, was multiple phasing screws up systems filters. I guess
There's challenges
I
there
haven't
with
had
it.
too much of a problem. Yeah, I haven't had too many issues with phases and messing up systems, but other than the systems that got demoed, you know, where they go undefined.
Yep.
And then, of course, if we're going anything marked existing or anything like that, little hockey puck transfers or things like that that are utilized for system data for piping and or ductwork or anything like that, because obviously with phasing controls, right, our data gets stripped from a system perspective, and we want to do a connect to existing and have some of that existing data there. There's lots of different ways that we can deal with that, guys, in those scenarios. I'm a big proponent of filters for just graphical changes, and that's how I track it, but other people like to use the phasing and do the whole hockey puck connector workflow, guys, which is just basically a coupling with a connector on it that houses the system data at that point that you can then propagate down the run of the pipe.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, electrical does the same thing with existing circuits and loads, just a placeholder load that carries information forward.
Yep. All right. So we got another question here, guys. Where or how are people utilizing Dynamo with MEP design? And I think that that the answer to that question is everywhere, and probably more than a lot of people think.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like for instance, one of the things that I've got, I wrote a script that was super easy to find all the architectural rooms and just place a space there, rename the space, and tag all my views that have spaces visible. It takes out all those unneeded, unnamed spaces. When you do place spaces automatically on a level, you get all the column surrounds and the plumbing chases and et cetera, right? So one of the things that I want to do is eliminate a lot of that effort, not to mention just putting in the tags, because you have to go to every view and tag it. So just creating a small script that did all that for me, finds all my sheets or all my views and automatically tags everything. I don't know, I probably have a dozen scripts so far, that are doing something for, whether it's construction documents, placing tags automatically, spacing them along pipe or duct without tagging the verticals, that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a ton of things that we can do, from either automating your construction documents to working through design, assigning the CFM. Blake and I have demonstrated that before too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think almost every firm out there, they need a Dynamo guy. So I got my guy, Brian Hader, if you're out there, hello and thanks.
Right
John
there.
knows a lot about Dynamo too. Every firm needs a Dynamo guy, and I think there's lots of ways to leverage that. My own personal take on Dynamo is I don't think that's a tool for everyone in a company, for every user. It almost seems like there should be certain people that execute big commands, on certain projects, and then they go and do that at the next projects. But yeah, there's lots of ways to leverage Dynamo. So, one thing with the productivity pack that we've been working on is that project setup Dynamo script, which we've continued to refine and kind of build into a prompt now at the beginning of a project. So we're using it as a project setup tool to help eliminate or in some cases add content that's not currently there based upon some user specified answers to questions. And I'm still working on, what is the right 20 to 30 questions to ask someone to know, what you all need to know about a project before you get started. And I think that'll continue to get refined over time. But, once those questions get answered for a project, the project can get completed. So that's one way we've been using it. John mentioned the airflow thing. We also have a script for keynotes. So my company, we use a generic annotation with note block schedules for keynotes, and you have to edit a sheet number and a keynote number for all of those for the schedules to populate. And so Brian, he made a Dynamo script that just rips through every sheet and will make sure that every keynote has the correct filter filled in, So things like that, automating, so that could be 100 elements, keynotes that people are screwing up all the time. And anyone can run that at any point in time. So.
Yeah, and I think, guys, Dynamo at least was one of those items that when it came into the industry, me being a little bit more of a pessimist than the other two people on the call, I was always going, man, this is going to be the excuse for something to not have to get done some other ways in terms of Autodesk software, right? I've been proven wrong in that case, and delightfully so. Dynamo to me has proven itself to be a very useful tool. And like you just heard Blake say, guys, everybody needs a Dynamo guy. It is such a productivity increaser for just the daily monotonous BS data entry type of tasks that all of us hate doing. It's a complete game changer. So if you haven't played with Dynamo, please play with Dynamo.
Yeah. Get a few people up to speed really fast, and then what they're going to realize lots of things that they can start to write little small scripts for. But it doesn't seem like it's something for everyone. It's something for a specific few in a company, and probably more than one is better, so they can bounce ideas off each other.
Mm-hmm. Another question here, guys, about post-construction. So in regards to post-construction, with all the information and data we incorporate into our BIM models, do we think that our clients are really getting the value out of that work? Do we see that they're utilizing all that upfront work done from a data perspective in post-construction on a regular basis, be that facilities maintenance or otherwise?
Not yet. Yeah, I almost see the owner getting value sooner in their construction costs, So I see the big value for the owner before that is the reduced cost in the contractor, because they can use the design model, for what they need it to do for fabrication and for cost estimating. I mean, cost estimating, it's pretty much there right now. So, if the construction team can reduce their costs to eliminate some of that time for cost estimating and for making their fabrication sheet layouts and things like that, I think that would be the first direct benefit to the owner. And then the information in due time, would still be there. But, they need people that are up to speed with the software for them to leverage some of that. So it's not going to be as common, I think, at first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. John, have you had experience with that?
Yeah, we've had more and more clients putting into the contract that a Revit model is required as a deliverable. So that's growing, depending on the savvy client. If they're any good at following BIM and have a decent team behind them for their facilities. But I think it's going to become more and more prevalent. I mean, it's slowly gaining traction. You still have people that just go design me a building and leave it at that. But as our clients, government agencies and other things become more and more savvy and start requiring the models, it's becoming more and more prevalent, and we need to kind of stay ahead of that curve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and you're seeing, obviously a rise in IPD that's really hot right now. It's been hot for a couple of years. Everybody's talking about integrated project delivery and what that roadmap winds up looking like. I can tell you guys from my experience, I've worked on 2 builds as a contractor that took it to that level, that took it to an operational level. But both of those builds, were extremely unique in terms of them being clean room facilities. One was a semi-conductor processor creator, right, builder. Another one was a food processor. But in those scenarios, the building owner had a vested interest in that data up front. The unfortunate part of that, guys, is that the reality of what that was going to be as a deliverable was basically left up to the contractors at that point. It's not like we leveraged the data from the engineering model, because the engineers really weren't part of the contract that was required that data entry that was given to the contractors. So I think that it's still a moving target right now in terms of what a contract looks like, who's responsible for what. They're all just kind of starting to take shape. But in general, I would say that, yeah, people aren't really leveraging the data all the way through a project at this point. You got a handful of people out there that are maybe smart enough to do it, but not seeing it done on a mass scale by any means.
Well, and still in the design industry, we're still seeing pushback from architects and engineers that don't necessarily want to share their model with the contractor.
Which boggles my mind.
Right. That's, well, why should I be doing his job for him? Is kind of the pushback that we've been getting. Even though, like, be a good steward of the project. Yeah, provide the information that the contractors need to get their job done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being an old contractor, I got to build it. And if you're not going to give me something to build it from, how do you anticipate I'm going to build
Other
it?
than a PDF.
And have it be correct, you know?
Right.
Yeah, definitely a balance, and same for the contractors too. They may not want the design model because, you know, some of them were done so poorly. It's Brian Binkley. I mean, he's told me some horror stories out there of, you know, it's just these
Well,
design models that he's seen, and it's like there's no value in that. You know, I'm starting from scratch, but yeah, there is a trade-off. We're not there yet, but I mean, certainly there's some duplication of efforts, you know, between design and the construction efforts. So if those get streamlined and meshed together, well, you know, at the end of the day, that's less cost for the owner for the entire project. So,
sure. We got kind of I guess a follow-up question, or a question that kind of goes along the lines of what we've been discussing, but it focuses more on the constructability of a Revit model and how it's being utilized. So it's a question coming in about, do you currently see the 3D model being utilized beyond design and on a job site for constructability? I see that in terms of people are leveraging that through BIM 360 in document form in terms of accessing the documents. What I don't see is people, you know, using the live Revit model, and I don't think that we would ever want them doing this, to actually go about and do constructability, because that thing's live and it's, you know, subject to change. When it comes to building, we always have to go off what are the legally, you know, exchanged documents. There's all sorts of processes in place on a job site to make sure that you're building from the actually approved document. So right. I don't know how much of that we see moving forward, but go ahead and feel free to comment, guys.
I mean, I've sat in some job trailers, you know, where Navisworks is leveraged pretty heavily by the contractors for coordination, space coordination. But like you just said, Don, that's kind of a snapshot of design. That's not the live Revit model in itself. But I don't know. I mean, I could definitely see it being used more over time here.
Mm-hmm. John, do you have a comment on that one?
It's, yeah, the 3D modeling. I mean, it in the field, and if you have one of those helmets with the AR, and you can verify whether or not things are kind of going into place correctly. But I don't see using the Revit model per se in the field. But
sure,
some of the BIM 360 stuff is getting useful. Still not seeing many people using field and glue, and a lot of that is getting incorporated into other areas of BIM 360. Mm-hmm. But as a tool for field verification, I could see that on the contractor side, absolutely. No, or even on the engineering side, if you wanted to verify that, yeah, those ducts went in exactly in the correct place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, before you button up the plenum.
Well, then, for my contracting background, guys, I understand why people want to do laser scanning for as-built. I get it. We want to verify that things go where they're supposed to go. But man, if you're doing your due diligence and from a coordination perspective and you're prefabbing, you shouldn't really need that, except for a couple maybe key areas, because all of that should have been worked out prior to it going to fab. That would be obviously the perfect world, but that was always the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, laser scanning at the end of a project would only be beneficial if you ever remodeled again, right? Am I missing something? So,
Well, verification too, Blake, is often what we
oh,
use it for,
sure.
just to make sure that, you told the truth. You put that thing exactly where you said you were going to.
Sure.
Yeah. So shift gears a little bit here, guys, to the design side, early on design side. Trace 3D. Have either of you gotten a chance to touch Trace 3D yet?
Not as far as the GBXML workflow. And actually we're leaving it alone until it happens, until they get the GBXML working. But we've moved on to IESVE. It's a little more robust. It does offer GBXML import and export. Although the workflow is clunky, not quite as simple or refined as the Trace 700 was, but our high performance design group that does all the energy modeling for every project is using IESVE to a high extent, and we're doing it on almost every project. And we're still hammering out some of the workflow issues with the GBXML.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, IES is powerful. I got nothing bad to say about it. I mean, all of us, I think we're all after the same thing, which is not having to redo something again in another place. We're trying to eliminate the duplicated efforts, and that's where GBXML can help. So with Trace 3D Plus, I'm on a first name basis with a trained CDS support group out of Wisconsin. So when I call, they know who it is. And I've talked to a couple of their lead developers over there, and I guess the reality of it is they're not putting heavy support into GBXML processes because it's a weird game, where Revit's trying to take their bread and butter. Autodesk is, and they're trying to be able to withstand on their own. So I believe in GBXML. I think the concept of it with a common language is totally relevant. But now that these programs are in their own 3D environments, we're now visually, they're trying to create something that was transferred in from GBXML. That process is really difficult with all those surfaces and getting them in the right place, the right orientation, and then showing the user at the end of the day something that looks like a building. It's challenging, and in Revit, they're not Autodesk, they're likely not giving them the best set of data points, if you will. So I don't know. I want a one-stop shop personally. I've got a lot of history with Trace and Train, and we love to still leverage their products. But for me, I don't want to have to rebuild anything, multiple times. So I don't know. Yeah, Autodesk is doing a lot of advancement in their own load software and energy modeling. That's come a long ways. It's still not to a point where I'm using it personally. So, but I mean, who doesn't kind of want a one-stop shop in some situations, and not for everything, but.
Yeah, and in terms of a lot of heat gain calcs out of Revit, it's always, for me at least, it's been the tediousness of the adjustments that have been needed to be made. Like if you want to sit and play with numbers or play with some R values or some U values from specific walls and just run some different load calcs and see what you can get away with. That's much more painful to do in Revit than, say, for example, Train Trace or Carrier Haps or any other software that's set up specifically to do that. That's always been my takeaway and my challenge with it. Love the fact, like you said, Blake, that everybody wants a one-stop shop. I absolutely want that out of Revit, but wouldn't mind having it be a little bit easier for me to play with some numbers from an engineering perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's almost like Trace took a step back in the GBXML workflow once they went to a 3D environment, because like I said, that information that comes in, it doesn't look like a pretty building when you try to put it together on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some hangups there currently, and not to say that they couldn't get worked out. I think it'd be in Train's best interest to get that worked out, so they can have workflows on both sides, fully independent or with some other software giving them the information.
Well, yeah, the GBXML,
right.
That's a non-proprietary file format, right? So that's an open-ended system with more than just Revit. It would definitely be intelligent, for any manufacturer of that type of software to have some sort of data exchange file export type.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. All right, guys, moving on. Got another question here about working from home. What are some good ways, since everybody's working from home now, to keep our Revit models safe from the cyber peeps who want to come in and steal everybody's stuff?
I'm not worried.
One of the
about
ways
any of
that,
yeah. Let's worry
I
about
mean, we're leveraging BIM 360 and Nasuni, which I think uses
Nasuni, yeah.
Amazon Web Services. Yeah.
BIM 360 is always my go-to. Amazon Web Services is super secure, allows for centralization in the cloud. That's always my go-to, just simply because it allows you to keep working and maintain your documents and everything else that you need to do from an exchange standpoint.
Yeah, BIM 360 for us, opened up some opportunity where users didn't need to remote into their machines at the office as well, so they could get to those Revit models directly from home, which worked well in some situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in terms of cyber threats, go ahead, Blake, go ahead.
Well, was there more to that question, Don, I guess, or more context? Like if a Revit model got out there, I mean, I guess what I'm asking the person that asked the question is what's your concern, or what do you, what could someone do with it really at the end of the day? Unless it's like, a model for a client or a government client, but usually, the government clients, they already have their own processes, for protecting those. But normal jobs, it's like if a Revit model got out there, I don't know what you were losing.
Yeah, and if you're looking, things like ransomware attacks or things like that, obviously that's more IT focused than anything else. If you're going to get a cloud platform to exchange information, or that's much less of a concern on a cloud platform. But if you're going to get a server-based platform for you to own the physical location of the data, then obviously you need to look at whatever we're using as an exchange software and how good it does of a job it does mitigating that risk for us. Obviously, guys, that risk is always there. It's always changing. It's always evolving. It's always something that we're challenged with. But like Blake just mentioned, I think it's always important to ask ourselves the question of what are we protecting and why are we protecting it? And that's going to drive how we get it done, or how important it is, rather, for us to protect it.
Yeah, how much resources do we put towards protecting it?
Absolutely. But thank you for your question. If we didn't answer it thoroughly enough, you're more than welcome to type in a follow-up question to say, no, that's not what I meant. I want you guys to talk about this, and I'll elevate that one if you type that in. Got a question about disc golf courses in Colorado. Blake, since you mentioned Colorado and disc golf, where's your favorite disc golf course in Colorado?
I could only name one, only because I was just
Fair.
there 2.5 months ago. But I'm not gonna be able to think of the name now. I was just out there 2 months with some adult friends, wives and husbands, and it was a lot of fun. Guys went and disc golfed for the day, and the women went on a hike, and we were disc golfing in the mountains with the lake in the background. It was beautiful. That
sounds beautiful. I'm jealous right now. So I got some more questions, guys, about point clouds here. How are we currently, or how are you guys rather currently leveraging point clouds in an efficient manner when it comes to existing conditions on the design side of a project? So are either you guys getting point clouds before you start designing at this point? You getting point clouds for existing conditions? Are you getting point clouds for retros? Are you getting point clouds in general? You doing site scans? I mean, are you dealing with any of that right now?
Mostly retros for us.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Blake. Oh. Yeah, we've got a group of guys that are going out and doing scans prior to projects, and we're basically, I don't know, coming back and modeling it over the top of the point cloud, but there's no really good efficient process unless you buy some of the add-ons that automatically convert those elements.
Yeah, I mean, I see point clouds as super valuable. You know, the timing of them, it seems like we all get some really crappy as-built drawings, right? We've all gone through that where we're looking at this really horrendous PDF that's been scanned 4 or 5 times and we're trying to decipher this or that. And I mean, point clouds are amazing, you know, to model existing conditions over that. And they make that process really fast. There definitely is time savings with the point cloud, you know. And me personally, I believe in the investment of modeling the existing conditions because, like I said, I use those elements moving forward for new construction. But yeah, there's value there. But, you know, once again, the building has to be opened up at the right point in time to get a really good point cloud with all the information. You know, warehouse or things like that where there's not a lot of ceilings in this and that. It's you have a much larger window of when the point cloud's created. But yeah, I almost wish the construction processes would change for a remodel where demolition would partially occur where things get widely opened up, you know, and then someone surveys and then like they send in a design crew or a survey crew, a point cloud crew, you know, and all that stuff gets documented. And then you kind of go back to, you know, doing your initial design. But unfortunately that doesn't all work because a lot of buildings need to be occupied before you can get there. So it's not a perfect situation.
No, absolutely. John, did you have further comment on that one? I just saw you kind of nodding your head, so I thought you were going to keep going there. So my apologies. So we do have a follow-up, guys, to the question about cybersecurity. The potential for malware coming from user downloads and installing add-ins and apps. So currently I'm working on protocol for how we approach this as a company. I want users to still be able to install add-ins and apps that increase productivity, but I want to make sure that those installs are safe. Either of you have a comment on that? I'm not an IT professional, so any comment I make, guys, at this point is going to be very ignorant, and I apologize for that. But would like to your guys' take on it if you have a take on it.
Yeah. John. Yeah.
So our IT department has pretty much locked down everybody's machine except for people in the BIM group to test add-ins. So all installs go through IT, period. Just because we do get people that download junk and corrupt or expose their machines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I don't have much experience or insight to offer about locking down Revit in a sense from keeping users from installing add-ins. You know, I mean, I always believe in having the open conversation approach, you know, with your staff and designers. And if they come across something that they think would benefit them, you know, let's talk about it, you know, before just going rampage and trying it out on your own kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, at Gausman and Moore, we don't have a closed door approach. It's more of an open door approach, you know, and just keeping communication open about what people are looking to try to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, sorry, Keith, that we couldn't get into more detail on that question for you. That is definitely more of an IT question. It's one of those things that, you know, we can definitely reach out to me outside of this, and we can see what we can't get for answers for you in terms of how we can drive that. Moving on to some other questions then. Got one here from an ATG employee, and it's actually a pretty good question. It was one of the questions that I was going to ask if we ran out of questions. So in terms of new features, guys, in Revit, and let's talk about new features from 2019, 2020. Okay, let's just keep it simple. Have we seen new features in 2019, 2020 that are improving our efficiencies today? And if so, what are those features and how are you leveraging them?
I could speak to one for sure. Autodesk, they did a lot of development on these new analytical components, and there's a couple things I want to touch on, which I found to be really cool. So they were working on a lot on the fluid side, pumping systems, piping connections. They were working on making the pump system more real, right? The flow through the water, more tied to the pump than like the flow just connected from all the fixtures, in a given pipe. So they added these pump sets, or maybe they're called equipment sets in 2020. I think they're called pump sets. And once you create a pump set, it actually kind of makes it into its own kind of model group type of thing. But then you can control the flow a lot better. And if you had parallel pumps, you could control a specific flow from this branch and this branch. So they gave you more control on the pump actually being the driver for what's the fluid, the fluid GPM going around the network. So that was one item. But another thing that I don't know when it got there, but I know it's there in 2020 was an analytical pipe connection. So, we all understand that making the final connections to equipment takes the most amount of time, right? So if you run a main over a piece of equipment, so they enabled you to use flow propagation before you make that final connection, and that's with an analytical pipe connection. These are really powerful, and I think they're going to come around more. So it's essentially an imaginary connection from the piece of equipment and the pipe. There's no pipe drawn. It's an analytical connection. And as soon as you make that, it's like you connected the pipe. So the pipe now shows that additional flow. The system information is all inclusive of all that equipment. So on the system side, I guess that's where I've seen tons of benefits coming. So.
Sure.
Yeah, and some of the features that I like were some of the improvements for schedules and other things. And I'm probably leveraging more add-ins than I am new Revit features. The analytical connections are pretty sweet, but as far as the other features, we're doing a lot of data mining, if you will, of all of our projects. And we're using Clarity and Power BI to create dashboards to visualize elements in projects, families, which ones are being used most often. Are people using the correct families or vetted families or manufacturer families? So we're doing a lot of more data analytics on our projects to sort of help us identify where some of the issues are, either with our users or with our content.
Sure. And so that's kind of a good segue into some of the, oh, go ahead, Blake, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to tack on one thing I forgot to mention. One thing that Autodesk is adding is tying in elevation into the ability to tag it, the ability to have it in families and use it in formulas. So that's been one of the kind of global pieces that's always been disconnected from the family content versus where it lived in the project. So they're going to make that connection, and that'll open up some doors for different things.
Sure, absolutely.
And the opening up of lookup tables with the units.
No, that was
huge.
For that tip. Yes. I'm excited to see lookup tables expand into more things in Revit, because I think that that's key, especially for us from an MEP perspective. Got another question here, or rather question that I put together. Sorry, guys. In terms of these features, these new features in 2019, 2020 that we've just been discussing, and even going back to previous version years, in your humble opinion, what has been the greatest efficiency increasing feature ever added to Revit? That's a deep one, isn't it? Yeah. I've got my opinions on this, guys. I'm curious to hear yours. I thought about that one for a while. What's the one feature that Revit added where you were like, that's it right there. Now we're moving forward.
I don't know when they came around or when, I think the future is model groups. I mean, it's model groups, to me, it's prefabricated design, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Model groups is all the little detailed elements that you don't want to spend on every project done once and then leveraged, you know, time and time again. So I see model groups as that biggest feature for me, and also being a major player in the future.
Sure. No, and fair, Blake, right? Because model groups were never intended to leverage them the way that we've figured out a way to leverage them. So
yeah,
a lot of times it's taking something that's been offered and flipping it on its ear and making it work for you. So John, most efficient feature?
Oh, the space naming utility. That was it.
I love it. That's good. Mine was the actual duct and pipe commands that were added in 2013. I think not having those prior to, and then trying to do MEP design with this was really a challenge. So part of this, guys, was self-reflection. Look how far we've come in a pretty short amount of time with Revit.
Yeah.
Because all of us could sit here and swap stories about how we used Revit, you know, even 10 years ago at this point, and it wasn't what it was today. So it's grown quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Favorite Revit Express tool and why?
Family processor.
And you both can't have the same answer. Blake.
Damn it, John. Go ahead, John. What's your reason? Why do you like it so much?
Because it allows me to grab all the parameters and formulas and values out of a properly built family and push them into a new family, or swap out the manufacturer's parameters, etc. It's probably the most powerful tool that you come across. Unlike Parameter Jammer, which is kind of a band-aid.
Down and dirty.
By the way, a quick note on Parameter Jammer. If you have a lot of types from a manufacturer and you start mapping parameters, it will pick one type to use those values. So all of the types then get those values. So if you swap out, let's just say, a parent load from the manufacturer to the apparent load from, say, your families or your schedules, it'll make all of the apparent loads the same. It's disappointing to say the least. So
yeah, it's just
so
a little bit extra entry, but you know.
Right.
Go ahead, John. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I'd say then, you know, you could add on a little workflow and export a family types type catalog and just rename the column, push it back in.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think if I remember right, we back in our CTC days, I don't think we created Parameter Jammer to go after types. It was more of like, look, this one family, this one time,
Yep.
Get this process,
Yep.
get this done, get the project, keep going with the project. So
right. It's the Band-Aid.
Yep. And Blake,
All right.
favorite Express tool and why?
All right. Well, so I love Excel. So I should say Spreadsheet Link, but I'm not going to say Spreadsheet Link. I've done a lot with shared parameters, and so I should say shared parameter manager, which is awesome, but I'm not gonna go with that one. See down now I'm plugging those two, and that's not
Yeah,
actually.
I thought I knew your answer to this one. You're throwing me curveballs left and right, man.
I am gonna go with the tool that that was created for me, for my development team, because initially when we built the productivity pack, some crazy person had this idea initially, myself, that we want to put a capital G and M underscore and then the shared parameter name. So this was when Don and Alex first came around. And they're like, guys, so we're gonna have to change all these shared parameters. You know, we don't want, you know, company specific names in the shared parameters. And so CTC's like, all right, we're gonna make you guys a tool because we had all those shared parameters in every schedule. So they made schedule parameter resolver, SPM, for us for this process. And it's a powerful tool. Allows people to swap out parameters in schedules across all your schedules in your project. So anyone that's put together schedules could imagine the man hours that were saved for us when that tool was created. And then also with that said, I would challenge ATG and CTC to take that tool further. Let's do more with the parameters and how we're using them in schedules. So let's give some more robustness to that tool so that people can, you know, search for all the common header names, you know, and let's change this shared parameter that has this header name to this other word, you know, let's make it easier for firms customizing stuff from the pack to globally execute these changes. You know, it's like, well, that's no big deal. You guys want to use this parameter? You want to call it this? That's easy, you know? So that's my idea for that tool.
And that's why I like having meetings with you, Blake, because every meeting I've ever had with you, regardless if it's something like this or an actual meeting, I leave with next steps and some tasks to do from the meeting. So we will definitely start looking into that, because you're absolutely right. We should be able to take that tool to the nth degree. And, you know, creative ways of using the Express tools has always been the mantra for me, at least, of the tools, right? It's great that we have tools, especially provided by CTC, that, you know, improve our daily workflows. But for me, it's always been, that's just scratching the surface. How do we leverage these in a different way that does even more for us? And I think that we've come up with a lot of these, you know, us three have come up with a lot of different creative ways to be able to leverage some of those tools and do some additional things. So I see that we're sneaking up on the
hey,
hour
Don,
here.
what was yours?
Yeah.
What's
your
my
favorite Express tool? Oh, well, I think everybody knows the answer to that, guys. My favorite Express tool is the MEP. Always has been, always will be. That's my heart and soul right there. So if you guys didn't know on the call, if anybody on the call didn't know, this is not all of the original MEP team, but a lot of it. So that's where we all kind of cut our teeth together, guys. That's how we all got to know each other. A lot of knockdown dragouts, late night debates about what the parameter should be called or where it should live or those sorts of things, you know, that you have nightmares about when you sleep trying to implement at your firm. Yeah, we went through those nightmares. We lived them in person. It was fun. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Yep.
But last question here, guys. In terms of staying up to date with Revit, where's your favorite place to go? Do you have a website that you like to leverage? Do you have blog posts that you like to read, YouTube sites you like to go to? Where's some of your go-to places when you want to find out some new stuff with Revit?
I go to Blake.
Don,
unfair answer, John.
Augie has some really smart people in that community, and I've picked up some tricks there. I've also found where there is no answers to anything. If I can't find an answer there, then I just deem the answer doesn't exist yet, and I'm gonna have to create the answer myself. But Augie's a great resource. You know, tons of really good blogs on different subject matter. You know, search for a issue you're having. Tons of good information there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the bulk of my stuff, I'll come up with search terms and just use Google, and I'll end up on any number of different blogs, you know, whether it's, you know, Revit Kid or BIM Guru, Aussie BIM guru. He's another good one, but and just other contacts in the industry, people that we run into. You reach out and say, hey, have you come across this? And they'll respond. Or and we've got a lot of sharp people on our BIM team, so I've got a pretty good network. If I can't find it on Augie or Google, then reach out to your friends.
Well, I think it's a great point, John. I think that's the value of going to the different conferences and things that we used to be able to go to, at least, that we can't go to right now because of COVID, but hopefully that eventually gets lifted and we start being able to go to those. I can't tell you how often I lean on the contacts that I've made through, because all of us have our different specialties, right? All of us are really good at a certain segment or a certain portion of the software or the process. We know the rest of it, but we're just really good at one. And man, if you can inside of your personal relationship tree, if you will, have different relationships with different people who specialize in those things, I mean, holy cow, you become a very dangerous individual. I mean, look, this case in point right here. If I didn't know you two, we wouldn't be sitting here talking right now, sharing all this lovely information with each other, and we wouldn't be, giving each other crap outside of here. So I think it's important to leverage those relationships, guys, because I think when you boil it all down to the root in this industry, we are in a relationships oriented business. It's about kind of who you know and being willing to share the knowledge with others. And everybody in this community that I've ever met is more than willing to share what they know with you.
Exactly.
Yeah, they always say that the best way to learn, as weird as this is to answer questions for people. So, if you can create yourself as helping other people at your workplace, they're going to come back to you, with more questions. And in due time, you create yourself into, this answer bank. And, what happens is you actually get tons of questions that you don't know the answer to, but now, you're finding those answers. So that's probably the fastest way to gain knowledge is to give out the knowledge you have.
Fair point, Blake. Well said. Well said. And so well said, I think we're going to end right there. That's a great closing statement. So everybody who spent their time with us today, thank you so much for spending a little bit of your day with us. And I know that I truly enjoyed the conversation. I hope you guys did too. And we got another one of these coming up, guys. It's going to be in a couple months, but we got another one coming up, and we'll hope to do more town halls. If anybody on the call right now has opinions about topics that should be covered in future town halls, things you want to see, conversations you'd like me to have with some industry experts, or even industry experts you would like me to reach out to try to get on the town hall, more than willing to bring people on here and then have some cool discussions about what's really going on from a design and Revit perspective. So with that, guys, thank you.